Hello guys and welcome back. So after all the important detail around on the face that finished, we can just go ahead and extend out from these guys and try to make variations on the face also. Since like here, I can see it does have some asymmetrical kind of like shapes. So let me use the standard brush. I can see that I have some low ground here, so I'm trying to dig that in and smooth it out. Okay, and at this stage you can also try to lower the subdivision level also, because it's not really that small detail wise, so you can probably achieve that much easier with lower subdivision level. That way the machine will just gonna run faster, right? And you got better performance. It's easier to manage also. Okay, all right. So always try to make better big shape, because that's what actually matters. Okay, so you go ahead and spend enough time in this stage trying to figure out, okay, is there something on the first or secondary shape that you overlook or you haven't make yet, right? So here you can see I'm trying to add something over there because that's what I see on the model. And here I'm clearly forgetting some important wrinkles, so maybe I need to go to a higher subdivision level and just try to make these. I think I feel like there are quite a bit wrinkles happening over here also. I'm trying to make that. All right, maybe I'm cutting it too deep, so let me smooth it out. Okay, should be subtler than that. Okay, so really carefully define these shapes. Oftentimes you need to go through a series of sculpting, and smooth to eventually get it right. Because sometimes you made it too strong, sometimes you made it too weak, sometimes you made the wrong shape. And also that smoothing and sculpt and smoothing again really build up a good volume for the shape. So it's not a bad thing to do anyways. In some traditional workflows, when we don't have those scan data, that's what we do, right? We sculpt, we smooth, we sculpt again until it looks good enough. So that's a lot of repetitive back and forth to do. Okay, and that's what I'm trying to do here also. Okay, it takes some practice also to get good with that. Sometimes the experience tells you, okay, I probably is making it too strong or too weak after. You can already see it sometimes. Yeah, make some more wrinkles going down here. Okay, because it's not perfect, right? We have a basic overlay, but that overlay, although it's really helpful, the thing really makes it looks like realistic or less flat or more three-dimensional are those secondary and first shapes. And the smaller wrinkle is just there to help style it so that it does have the detail. But what really makes it different are those bigger shapes. Since like here, let me dig in just a little bit over here and then give this guy a little bit more volume. You can see those are secondary shapes. They're not first shapes. The first shapes are those like the cheekbone and then and nose, the eye. That's the first shapes, first level of shape. But secondary shapes like this little digging in part, right? That's also something you need to implement at some point, because they really make the shape look more organic and break up the big too uniform base shape. Okay, so here I can dig in a little bit more here and give this guy a little bit more volume. Yeah, my dog loves to howl when he hears the siren for some reason. Anyway, so I keep sculpting here. All right. Cool. So those secondary shapes really helps to make the character looks more realistic, convincing, and more detailed. Right. You cannot just get away with just those flat details. You can compare this face with the other side. You can see after just those smaller up and downs, secondary up and downs, right? It just feels much more detailed than the other one, although they have the same amount of smaller details. Okay. So this stitch can take a long time. Because it's subtle, it requires careful control. So you kind of want it to spend here enough time so that they fit together nicely eventually. All right, now digging in a little bit. This part feels a bit flat, so I'm gonna give it something, some volume here. I can also use move to tweak it. Move is actually a better tool to tweak bigger shapes because oh, maybe I'm moving it out too much. So it's a better tool for tweaking because it forces you to think about bigger shapes. Okay, and that's what I like about moving, because that forces me to really think, okay, am I getting the correct arc over here instead of is that little detail correct or not? Okay, see a little dip in there, so you can see what I'm trying to mimic right over there. Okay, so we have a little dip here. We have clearly some bigger bump over here. Okay, we have a visible dip over here. All right, and what else? We have a scar over here, and that's actually sometimes I'm not sure if I should do it here in ZBrush or in the texturing stage, because you could really quickly make a substance scar material or scar brush and just use that. I think that would be actually probably a better way of doing this after all, because then you can have the color, the roughness all defined with a substance layer in Painter. So sometimes I just leave those alone. Technology are advancing a lot, so I'm not sure sometimes, like, am I doing it right or not? Or am I using the right technique? Okay. Anyway, so see a little dip over there, and then some winkles. Standard brush is also pretty good. So when I'm sculpting the base shape, I use a lot of clay buildup, just because that's how I learn it. But I do feel like actually the standard brush does actually do a better job sometimes. So I started to use it more. Anyway, so see some bump over here. Maybe that's, yeah, see a little visible bump over here. Okay, give it a little smoothing. Right, oh, some standard brush to add some bump over here. So at this stage, it's really, I don't know if it's boring or not boring. To you, to me, it's kind of like tedious. I enjoy doing it, but it just takes some time. You have to be patient. To be patient, listen to some music, I guess, to go through this. And based on the personality of the artist, some artists really likes to do those smaller details, because it's I guess it's kind of like fun to add smaller detail and to see the result you're getting. see everything put together eventually. To me, I do enjoy, most of the time, I do enjoy the beginning stage when I'm actually sculpting the bigger shapes, because that's really defining the final result. Okay. Maybe I can enhance the ear a bit more. Also, probably need to find a reference for the ear, this part, to make it look better also. Don't want to really miss out some important part on the side also, so I need to add the necessary variations also around here. Don't want it to be too flat over here, so maybe make that a bit stronger. Okay. All right. And here around the corner of the mouse, that's one thing sometimes I overlook, which is a little bump happening over here. Carefully draw it out. Okay. Smooth that a bit. So basically, no matter what you're doing, you're trying to make a piece that looks comfortable, convincing, and detailed, right? But when it comes to those things, you have to understand that everything comes together to form the final piece. So that means you cannot fix a problem that is on a bigger shape with adding smaller detail, and you cannot fix the detail problem by changing the bigger shape either. So you kind of want it to be able to spot the problem and see what that is and be able to fix it afterwards, right? So that also means oftentimes spend more time going back and forth in different areas. Like, you take the bigger shape after doing too much smaller shape. So I always go back and forth and check, okay, am I getting the right bigger shape? Or is this something wrong with the smaller shape? Or what is not working here? It may not be something else. It might be something else, right? So you just don't really know unless you really check and try to really examine and see what's going on. Okay, so you can see oftentimes when I'm sculpting, I'm doing smaller shape, but now what I'm doing is just to move bigger shapes around. It's never wrong to do that. It's never a wrong time to do that either. You just go ahead and see, okay, I have done this in the wrong way. This bigger shape doesn't work. Then I will stop doing detail and drag the bigger shapes to enhance it. What I'm trying to do now is trying to give it more three-dimensional shape here. So I'm trying to push things out, pulling things out, pushing things in. Okay, and trying to get the correct curvature for different part of the face. Right. Feel like this part is bulging out a bit too much, so pushing those guys in. Okay, this takes a long time to tweak. Actually, you just never really know, or you just never really sure if it's correct in the first try, right? So you spend enough time tweaking these. Something doesn't feel right over here. All right, so spend here enough time, right, to add detail. I would recommend to spend it like 30 minutes to an hour just to add necessary details, necessary smaller secondary bumps, up and downs, asymmetrical result, right? You focus on those things until all the faces are getting massaged at least once, right, across this entire surface. All right, cool. So let's move on to the next video. We can talk about some imperfections we can add to the face just to bring it to the, to a more finished level. Okay, see you next time.